Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live. Talk radio without the static. Email your questions and comments to lynncullenshow@gmail.com. And now your host, Lynn Cullen.
Yeah. I'm really going to try to be in a better mood today. I mean, nothing has changed between yesterday and today, but decided, since we all have free will, I'm going to attempt to be a little more, I don't know. I was going to say positive, but I don't think that's in the cards. Whatever. I will try to be a little more whatever. The opposite of whatever the hell it was I was yesterday. Anyway, what's the date? It's 4/20, if that means anything to any of you. April 20. And looks like the weather is going to be a little better, which might have been part of my mood. I really think we are prone to have whatever our environment is offering us affect us. There's no doubt about that, right? Sometimes more than others. Oh boy. So where to start? I mean, I'm looking around at what I got here, and what I got here is again not conducive to feeling better. Dana Milbank did a funny send-up. I was saying yesterday that I can't even, laugh about any of this insanity that is gripping our nation anymore, because it really, ain't funny. And I'm going to walk that back. I mean, we do have to at times laugh, but we can't have that be the constant reaction. We have to react with fierceness. Although we're allowed to laugh on certain occasions, and I have to admit I chuckled a little bit at something that Dana Milbank wrote, making fun of the latest insanity coming out of the state of Florida in regard to critical race theory and book banning and all of that. I'm sure you've read that a number of textbooks have been deemed to be, dangerous to Florida's children and have been removed. 54 mathematics textbooks were among them. Math textbooks apparently teaching critical race theory. Who knew? This is how insane these people have gotten. And now I suspect that this thing reads better than it does for the ear, because it's so much about the words that got these books banned, perhaps. But Milbank, looked at some of the books and was trying to figure out what the hell in between the 2 + 2 is 4 could have gotten them banned. 54 textbooks rejected because they included prohibited topics. One of them, which he really zeroes in on because he found it the most obvious one for getting the boot, was the 2020 edition of a book called Pre-Calculus with Limits. Now, I have to tell you here, I am a very uneducated person. I never took calculus. I never took trigonometry. I don't know which one generally comes first. I never took physics. I went to a blue-collar, working-class, well, that's a bit redundant, high school, public high school, in the early 60s. And those subjects, were not, some people took them. I know my brother did, but not many did. And I was never good at math, so I avoided them. They seemed way too complicated. And yet that didn't in any way get in the way of me getting into Northwestern University. Today it would. I was woefully unprepared for college level classes. I really was, which I found out very quickly. At any rate, pre-calculus with limits. And Milbank finds things in it where, well, of course, look how insidiously this pre-calculus textbook is trying to indoctrinate the good children of Florida. He points out that at a time when Floridians, by law, don't say gay, much less trans, this textbook actually has an entire chapter on transitive property of equality. Transitive and equality, excuse me. Those are both obvious. If there was an algorithm used to find out which books would be yanked in Florida, that chapter alone, they're talking about trans and they're talking about equality. And there's all this stuff about transformations. And then Milbank finds that there are endless references to sin. S-I-N, although I think he's just reading it. I believe, even though I never took a calculus course, I believe that is pronounced in math sign. And he says, and not only there's all this sin stuff, but there's polynomials. Who knows what those, and then multiplying polynomials. He points out that on page 318, sin X takes on its full range of values. What? So this book is valuing sin. And then on page 734, this is a doorstopper of a book. It orders the children reading it to, quote, sketch the graph of the degenerate tonic. As Milbank says, for all of us. Disgusting. Here is a textbook that unabashedly is telling the children of Florida that, quote, reciprocal identities exist. This is how insidiously these elitists do it. He's not done. He found so much. It's just, and he makes clear. He says, I'm not being hyperbolic or even parabolic. This book is packed with mentions of regression and other forms of deviancy. It actually tells young people to identify, quote, the product of conjugate pairs. Excuse me, conjugate pairs. That might be highfalutin language, but I understand. Conjugate, that's like conjugal. Conjugate pairs, obviously sexual. So a math book, getting this sexual stuff this indoctrinating concepts all over this. He said one that he found just absolutely unbelievable is this. Here's a quote from the book. The focal cord, not vocal cord, the focal cord perpendicular to the axis of the parabola is called the latus rectum. And then it goes on to tell the children reading this book to find the length of the latus rectum. As Dana Milbank says, I don't even want to know how that would be done. Unbelievable. It goes on and on. So that's Pre-Calculus with Limits, which is the title of the banned book. One of, what did I say, 40-some math books, amongst God knows how many history books, social studies books. It's amazing. Is there a book left in the state of Florida? And you know, and how would critical race theory be in a math book? And he finds it. It's very, again, it's sinister. Because the book teaches children how to classify by discriminant. And as Milbank points out, the author of this book appears to be obsessed with inequality. So that all throughout the book, students are being told to solve linear inequalities or solve a polynomial inequality, solve a system of inequalities. So over and over, students are told to solve inequality, even though they did not cause it. They are not responsible for it. And it will only, of course, make them feel guilt for no reason whatsoever. And then there's this. You think it's not about race? Page 512. Using a different colored pencil to shade the solution of each inequality will make identifying the solution of inequalities easier. Yeah. So yeah, you shade those things, different colors, systems of inequalities, solve them. So there you have it. That's just one book. One book. And God help us all. Actually, brings me to a piece I saw closer to home. If you think this stuff, as I said yesterday, is just happening in the South, we talked about a public library being taken over by white Christians and books being tossed left, right, and center in Texas. And that's, I just talked about, happening in Florida. What do you mean you can't open the page, you jerk? Well, there was a school board meeting in York County, Pennsylvania, and I can't access it. I cannot believe this, that I can't access this. If I can get it some other way. It's about a school board meeting that got really heated, as so many of them do now. And this one was because a group of students had petitioned to have an after-school club acknowledged. You know, you have to jump through hoops to have it be, I guess, accepted. Now, the problem, though, and you can see where the problem would arise right away. The after-school club was going to be called the Satan Club. That's not a good way to get it approved. The branding is all wrong. I mean, if you look at what it's about, it's not about Satan, but you put Satan up there front and center, and people in this day and age are going to go nuts because it describes the 7 tenets of the Satan Club, and this is it's liberal stuff. It's progressive stuff. The first tenet: one should strive to act with compassion and empathy toward all creatures. 2, the struggle for justice is an ongoing pursuit that should prevail over laws and institutions. 3, one's body is inviolable. 4, the freedoms of others should be respected, including the freedom to offend. 5, beliefs should conform to one's best scientific understanding of the world. So Satan is a way of they're rationalists, I guess, humanists, rationalists. 6 tenet is people are fallible. One makes a mistake. One should do one's best to rectify it. Number 7, every tenet is a guiding principle, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, that's what the club teaches. So if the hordes of Christians that showed up at this meeting had done their homework, they might have realized that there was nothing terrible. But even learning at the meeting by some who supported the club what it was about, they still went berserk. Berserk. They were quoting scripture. A guy named Paul Miller said this: that people in the community who supported this should be cast out of the community. You shouldn't be here, he said. There's no room for you here. If this freaking group does get voted in, let's do something about it, he said to the crowd, which cheered in support. Actually, the town, I love the name of the town. The town that this is happening in is Dillsburg. It's just a little step removed from Dullsburg, which would be a better name. Satan is a tyrannical force. I do not want our town's image to be destroyed, William said. I do not want Dillsburg to be known as a town that accepts everyone. Ha! Ha! There it is. You see that? I mean, can you imagine? This is a guy standing up to cheer saying, we do not want our town to be known as a town that accepts everyone. Member of the audience held a crucifix above his head throughout. Oh my God. So you're wondering how the board ruled? You're kidding me, right? Well, there ain't going to be any after-school Satan club, I'll tell you that. In Dillsburg, Pascal, who I quoted the other day too, said this: men never do evil so completely and cheerfully as when they do it from a religious conviction. It is so true. And it reminds me of that Gandhi quote that I've shared with you many times, which I will now paraphrase because I'm not exactly sure of the exact words, but here is a paraphrase. I like your Jesus Christ. but I don't much like your Christians. They are so unlike Jesus Christ. That's just words spoken by a Hindu who was observing what was going on around him. And then also in regard to the white Christians gone wild, which I'm trying to laugh about it today. Yesterday I was not laughing, and I'm not laughing. We are losing this country. Not in my long lifetime, heading into my 75th birthday. Not in my long lifetime have I felt such fear. Not even in the 60s, which are scary, believe me. They were scary. There's a reason people were doing drugs to get through it. I'm sure some of you have seen this if you're on social media. This has made the rounds, and it is a floor speech given by a legislator in Michigan. And she rose to address the chamber. Her name is Mallory McMorrow. I think I've got that right. And it's on, if you want to Google it, you'll find it. It's powerful stuff. What had happened is a Republican member of the Michigan, whatever, I think House, had put out some fundraising emails, and like so many Republicans now, was telling her constituents that they needed to send her money because Democrats, Satan worshipers, pedophiles, it's all one and the same. And she named this colleague, Mallory McMorrow, who serves in the same legislative body, named her as an example of someone who was grooming and sexualizing children. So, now if you're a Democrat, you're a pedophile. There are Republicans who now think, it was serious, and this is that QAnon stuff that has gone totally mainstream. Our state house, I'm sure, has people who believe this. And this Mallory McMorrow, seeing that, got pissed. And she took to the floor to tell her colleagues who she was. And it definitely was not a groomer or a pedophile. And she said she was standing up because hate will win if people like me stand by and let it happen, don't fight back. And she made very clear who she was. She said, since the other woman is a white Christian, right, woman, so this Democrat stands up and says, so who am I? I am a straight, white Christian, married, suburban mom, who knows that the very notion that learning about slavery or redlining or systemic racism means that children are being taught to feel bad or hate themselves because they're white is absolute nonsense. She went on to talk about how these Republicans are just constantly trying to exclude groups. It's what they do. It's how they energize the majority. feel like the Republicans, are protecting them from these sinister minorities. But the Democrat, Mallory McMorrow, got up and said, I want every child to feel seen, heard, supported, not marginalized and targeted if they are not straight, white, or Christian. And then she went on to call out the Republicans because she said, people who are not straight, white, or Christian are not the reason our roads are in bad shape or our healthcare system is ridiculous or teachers are leaving the profession, all those problems that really exist. But they're a nice little tool to distract you from the fact that the Republicans are offering nothing to fix any of it. They've got nothing. It's why they fall back on this always sure winner. Scapegoating, fear-mongering, and outright lying. So this woman really threw it back in her face very powerfully. Like to see more of that going on. And by the way, since then, the woman who she called out, the Republican, has not said boo. She has not apologized. Now, I want to talk about the fact that calling people groomers and pedophiles is, wow. File that under everything old is new again. Because a lot of us thought that particular lie, that gay people were out to groom, recruit, remember that? Groom and recruit your children. It's back. I think it'll be like the number one plank in the Republican platform. So to all my gay friends, like so many women, you are under threat to be marched right back to where you were in the 50s. Or Roe v. Wade, or gay marriage was legalized. Discrimination laws included gay people. The Republicans, make no mistake about it, are intending to roll all of it back. Because these white, conservative, Christian haters who Mahatma Gandhi didn't much like and who God knows I don't much like are the driving force of their nationalistic, racist, intolerant party. There was a piece some weeks ago written by Frank Bruni, the former columnist for the New York Times. I don't think he has a column anymore. I think he writes opinion pieces. He's a gay man. And he's the one who said he can't believe that he feels like he's in a nightmare, a deja vu nightmare, hearing this talk of grooming. As he points out this, he says, for much of my life, I was extra careful around young children, especially young boys. I made certain not to give them a pat on the back, lest my tenderness be misinterpreted as something else. There was no playful tousling of hair, so there would be no wrongful suspicion. That I was born in 1964 and I grew up when stereotypes about gay people like me were negative, deeply ingrained in the population. And perhaps the cruelest of all the lies that were told about gay people was that gay men especially were child molesters. It's why gay people weren't allowed to teach schools. They had to be watched. They had to be stopped. And he says he remembers the verb of choice, groom. Gay people groom your children. Remember Anita Bryant? She was a former Miss America. And then she became the spokesperson for the Florida Citrus, I think, Association. She was always, there were always oranges around her. In the 70s, she became the leading anti-gay spokesperson. In fact, she headed a group called Save Our Children. I mean, how close is that to where QAnon is and the pedophile thing, right? Save Our Children. And she once explained, I'm sure she explained many times, but I have this one quote. She said this, and people believed it. And now people believe it again. Homosexuals cannot reproduce, so they must recruit. And to freshen their ranks, they must recruit the youth of America. So Frank Bruni has noticed, I've noticed it too, that the Republicans are now openly trafficking in the verbiage, that hateful period. So when you hear the word grooming, that is a dog whistle. The homophobes. Because they are working themselves up into a hysteria about protecting their children. I started with this nonsense about the math book. It is part and parcel of the same concerted effort, and it will succeed. Republicans know anything. They know how to play this scapegoat game. They know how to sow fear. And they are really going to town. I wanted to point that out. And by the way, this growing anti-gay thing is not happening just here. It is happening in other countries that are moving toward autocracy or are already autocratic. Hungary, extremely anti-gay government top down, and the people are signing on. Poland, the same. Russia, of course, Putin traffics in it constantly. So just saying, okay? Be aware. If you want to laugh, go ahead. I'm not going to much. Roger wants to know how these people in Florida are going to teach automotive shop unless there's a new name for transmission. these days. Well, if you, like me, are somebody who, reads a lot of new stuff, you might have noted little stories over the last year about nominees that President Biden has sent up to the Senate for confirmation for various agencies and other executive functions, posts, and the Republicans, of course, doing everything they can to stymie his getting the people he wants on board his administration. But you may have noted, because I did, that a number of people who were, clearly very well qualified got to a certain point and then were like, it's like what happened to what the attempt to take down our next Supreme Court Justice Jackson Brown. All of a sudden, it takes a while to get the name right. Jesus. So anyway, the people who actually gave the talking points to the people on the Senate Judiciary Committee, the Republicans, to smear her with, by the way, the same pedophilia line, right? That's their baby right now. She somehow had a great sympathy for pedophiles, according to Ted Cruz and a whole bunch of others. The fact that it wasn't true does not factor in. But behind the kind of research that goes to finding a sentence that she may have written while a student 30 years ago at Harvard that could be out of context misconstrued, that takes a lot of legwork to do that kind of thing. And the senators don't have the capacity to do it. But they know who to turn to. And there is a particular organization that you should be aware of. It is a frightening organization. It is called, I believe, they always have such great names. I think the American Accountability Foundation. Yeah. And it is a tax-exempt, aren't all these things always tax-exempt nonprofit charity. Don't ask me where they give their money. They charitably attempt to slander any Biden nominee. In fact, they have wait, I'll find it here. They have a website you can go to. No, I'm not making this up. And it's called Biden Noms, BIDENNOMS, BidenNoms.com, BidenNominees.com. And on it, they display, like hunting trophies, the Biden nominees that their lies and insinuations have taken down, derailed. And this organization exists for one reason and one reason only, and they're very upfront about it, and that is to obstruct Biden's agenda. How's that a charity? Now, the media might cover the ones that are like big nominees, and you've seen some of those go down, maybe. But where they're not getting media attention is like sub-cabinet level appointees. And these guys have taken one down after another. By the way, this American Accountability Foundation is all white men. Big shocker there, isn't it? And the people they seem to be most focused on keeping out are women. Women, they've been most successful taken down. And women of color, wow, that's a twofer. This was all unmasked. If you have access to the New Yorker, I recommend the article to you. It's written by an incredible reporter, Jane Mayer, in the New Yorker. And I'm sorry, I can't remember the title of the article. But she, attempted, obviously, doing a piece on this to contact the guy at the head of it. And he responded to her thusly, misspelling her name. Ms. Myers, he said. That's not her name. Her name is Mayer. Ms. Myers. He asked for an interview. Go pound sand. You are a liberal hack masquerading as an investigative journalist and not a very good one. That was his response. And then he put that response up on his Twitter account along with Jane Mayer's cell phone number and email address so that she could be harassed. One of the nominees they took down, or I don't know if they've finished taking her down, but she's looking like roadkill. Her name is Lisa Cook. She's Black, woman. She's been a tenured professor at Michigan State for 10 years. She does have bipartisan support. In fact, the chair of the Council of Economic Advisors under George W. Has lauded her as an economic researcher and teacher and a great nominee for the Fed. She's been the Federal Reserve Board. I mean, if you look at her resume, it's just ridiculous. PhD, Berkeley, taught at Harvard's Kennedy School, staff economist for the Council of Economic Advisors, appointments at all kinds of this is and that's and blah, 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 blah. And this group went after her. And they were successful in that they tied up the Senate Banking Committee, which was the committee she needed to get out of to get a vote on the Senate floor. And she did not get, they managed to tie the vote up, which means, I don't know. All they have to do is pick off one, like a mansion, and she's toast, or else they'll pull her, or she'll step down. Here is how one conservative writer wrote about her. This is how they talk about a woman of such stature. They said in a column on Substack that she is a, quote, random economist at Michigan State who has shamelessly leveraged her skin color and genitalia into gaining the backing of several key White House officials. Tucker Carlson picked that up right away and ran with it. Whoa. Yeah. Really something. Here's the thank you, Barbara. Barbara sent it to me. The Slime Machine Targeting Dozens of Biden Nominees is the title. And this is in the April 16th edition of The New Yorker by Jane Mayer. A little known dark money group trying to thwart Biden's entire slate. Yeah, well, Republicans play rough. And I don't know what to say to you. I came upon another piece about how David McCormick, the Republican running to be our next senator, he's got to get by Dr. Oz, but he is running ahead of Dr. Oz. I find him really frightening. And I came upon a piece today that is simply about his wealth. And if he does get elected, he will be among, or perhaps the wealthiest member of Congress, which takes a hell of a lot of doing because they're gazillionaires. He's just so rich, it is a joke. Even though if you look at his ads, you'd think he lived on a little farm in Bloomsburg on the Susquehanna. And he's got so much money that his ads, both Oz and he have so much money. It's unbelievable. So I don't know. Frightening. And where did I read? We got a primary coming up, guys. I don't know how. I haven't heard from any of you about how you're voting, for a congressional seat that's up. The Democratic primary will likely decide the winner, although I don't think we should necessarily assume that. And you have two black progressives running. One, Summer Lee, already an office holder. The other, Jerry Dickinson, law professor with a very interesting biography. And Steve Irwin, late into the game, a Squirrel Hill lawyer. And he's the establishment candidate. He's got all the Democratic pals falling all over their feet, the establishment people supporting him. And the fact that you got two blacks probably dividing a black vote suggests to me that Irwin's got the inside track. I don't know. I hope not. I know Steve Irwin, he's a nice man. But I'm sick of these white, male Democrats, establishment Democrats that run every goddamn thing in this area. They're running less and less. Little inroads being made by black folks. Good. But the thing about Steve Irwin that I just can't get through my head is he works for a law firm in which the cases, mostly what he does is labor law. Now, I was married to a labor lawyer a long time ago. And if you do labor law, you do one of two sides. You either represent the working people, likely representing unions, or you represent the employer, corporations. And Steve Irwin, in his law practice, represents corporations. He represents the employer. So when you're called a labor, if he's called a labor attorney, that to an unschooled ear gives the wrong impression. He's not protecting labor. He's protecting boss. And that's why it blows me away that he has gotten the endorsements of tons of labor unions. Unbelievable. Do they even know? Are they like force-fed this? Or are these building trades unions so still racist because they're all just mostly white folks that they wouldn't endorse a black candidate? I don't know. All I know is that as this plays out, I see things that make me really unhappy. By all accounts, it looks like Fetterman is running away with the primary race. On the Democratic side, oh boy, I don't know. I hope we're picking wisely. I hope we are. And I want to say this. I don't know if you, as I said, I don't watch much news anymore. Not MSNBC, not CNN, nothing. I just don't. I've lost my stomach. But I am aware of a guy named Malcolm Nance. And I first saw him, I thought it was on CNN, but it might have been on MSNBC. I don't know. As a guy who would come on and be an expert on, I don't know, military stuff and security stuff and counterterrorism stuff. And then I just started following him on Twitter. So that's how I still see his post. And I want to point out that if you didn't know, he let his contract, he had a contract with MSNBC as an analyst. He let it go. And he went off to Ukraine to fight. Now, this is, I think, he's a 60-year-old man. He is not a young man. And if you look at his Twitter feed now, he's in full camo and armed to the teeth, and he has joined the International Brigade. And he was there, talking about the war, talking about stuff. The last thing I saw him talking about was when that Russian ship was hit. And before anyone was certain it had been sunk, he, because he's Navy, he said that ship is done, because he pointed out exactly where the entry wound, the missile had gone in, and that there was no way that ship was not going down. And he was out there in front of that from day one. He's often out there in front of stuff. I found him to be so smart. And now I'm worrying about him, because he's gone over there exactly when that war is getting more deadly. And I guess what he said, he told Joy Reid, he said, the more I saw of the war going on, the more I thought, I'm done talking, right? I'm done talking. It's time to take action. And so he dropped everything and went. He said, I'm here to help this country fight what essentially is a war of extermination. That's amazing to me. I always liked him, but now I'm in awe, and I pray he'll be okay. I know our State Department is warning Americans who are thinking they might want to go over there that the odds are, that you're going to get hurt. That this is one ugly war. And I've seen from American veterans who've gone over there who were in Afghanistan or in Iraq saying that this is more frightening. So, I don't know. Just wanted to point that out. And I went out to the grocery store yesterday and I wore a mask, and I saw a lot of people wearing masks. So I guess we're just, I don't know. Susan had said in Chicago she was pretty much the only one. I think it would be wise when out in, a space where you don't know other people and their status to be masked. My understanding is that there's a lot of sickness going around, specifically, by the way, on our college campuses here. CMU cases skyrocketing, and Pitt as well, just so you know. And I saw this thing where a pilot of a plane, telling the people on his plane that they didn't have to wear a mask, and and they all cheered, and he was saying, "Yeah, you are free." And I'm thinking, keep your fucking politics to yourself. I mean, you don't go on a plane to listen to the politics of the pilot. And why am I having such trouble getting to this thing I want to get to? Somebody pointed out, somebody pointed this out in regard to how we're now free because we don't have to wear a mask on a plane. If airlines can ask us not to eat peanuts on board because somebody might have a peanut allergy, then why wouldn't they ask us to wear a mask if there's, babies, 3-4-year-olds on board that are unvaccinated because they can't be, or a cancer patient on board, somebody who is really immunocompromised. So those lives are not valued like somebody who has a peanut allergy. He's just asking, and I'm thinking, yeah. And then I saw this, and I want to share it. By the way, something's happened. Anybody know my New York Times delivery guy? He has for years never missed. I have not gotten a paper since Sunday, and I call the New York Times, and they seem totally disinterested. So I mean, the fact is I can access it online, but I'm an old girl who likes to hold my newspaper and likes to highlight articles. So I feel I've been feeling very bereft this week thus far. There's a guy from Finland who is visiting here, and he has some friends here, and he meets with people, and it sounds like he's maybe in the, I don't know, he's here on business. But he says this, and it's what I say, but I'm just saying, here's somebody coming in from outside and feeling the vibe of the U.S. right now, and he says this. I say this with a huge amount of love and respect, but the USA feels on the brink of total social collapse. Oh, yeah. Well, I think sometimes that person coming in has a better perspective and can see the forest for the trees. And he sees a country that looks like it's collapsing. So there, I was more upbeat today, but I'm leaving you with that, which is pretty obnoxious of me. All righty. Hey, blue sky, weather warming, enjoy, and I'll be back tomorrow.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Thursday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper or its advertisers.